If you're looking to get more into Notion and wondering where to start, I wanted to share a quick and easy tutorial for a note-taking setup that you can use right away. In this video, I'll share a step-by-step guide on how to create a note-taking setup with some additional tips like note templates, recurring features, and more. If you find this video helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Let's dive right in. To get started, you're going to want to add a new page, and I recommend adding it to the private section if you plan to use this note-taking system individually, or if you want to use it in your team space where you collaborate on your notes, you can also add it into your team space by clicking the plus sign. If you don't see these options, you can also click on home here and then click customize sections to make sure that you have the relevant section turned on. In this case, I'm going to build it in the private section. The first thing I'll do is to click empty page to add an empty page here, and I'm going to name this one notes. I'll add an icon. Then I'm going to go to the three dots at the top here and then turn on small text full width so that I have more space on this page. The next thing that I'm going to be doing is to basically build out two databases, one for containing your notebooks and one for containing all of your notes. So how I'm going to do that is that I'm going to type /do database. I'll do database full page. This is going to be your notes database. I'm going to start by basically adding an actual note here so that you can actually see what kinds of properties you might want to add to this page. So this would be the title of your note. Let's say that I want to take some reading notes. Then if I open it, I can take my notes in here. So something like this. Then we can start adding a property. So properties are what can categorize your notes. With a notes database, I would recommend adding something like a created time so that you know when it was created. I would also recommend adding last edited time. So in case that you want to check what notes you've edited last, you can also sort it by that. A few other things that could be useful could be a URL if you're taking notes about a specific web page. You might want to also add a multi-select, which is basically a way to add various options to categorize the note. So I would rename this tags. And then if you click in the box, I could add something like reading notes and maybe productivity like this. Then what we can do is to sort this notes database. So I want to sort it by the created time so that I see the newest note at the top. And then I can add another note. Then you can see created time, last edited. Maybe I have a URL on the status update, tags, update, and so on. So now you can see how the tags could be useful. So we added the sort. You can also add filtering. So you could see things by a specific tag. For example, if you only wanted to see your reading notes. And then we have the basics of our notes database. I'll also add an icon here, add some kind of page for my notes. So now we have the notes database. Next, let's build a notebook database, which is basically going to allow you to see your notes based on what notebook you place it in. So I'm going to type /database again. This one's going to be full page, and I'm going to name this one notebooks. And for the icon, let's go ahead and put another book like this. And what we're going to do with the notebooks is instead of this kind of table view, I'm going to go to the settings icon over here, go to layout, and I'm going to choose a gallery view, and then I can click out. So now let's say that I have a notebook for reading, and I have a notebook for projects, and maybe I have another notebook for meetings. Inside of here, I could add a cover photo. So I could go to Unsplash, maybe something for reading, and I can add it for others as well. And once you add those cover photos, you can go back to the settings icon. I'm going to go to layout, and then I'm going to do card preview page cover. Before we move forward with the tutorial, I'd love to introduce you all to today's sponsor, Notta AI, and specifically how well it works with Notion. Notta AI is an AI-powered assistant and transcription tool, and the reason I wanted to show it to you is that your meetings can end up straight in your Notion database with one click. So here's how it works. You can opt for the bot joining your calls to transcribe them or have them record via audio and screen recording without joining your meetings. It even works for live meetings recorded through your phone, which is super convenient. Once the recording is done, that's where Notta Brain comes in, and it doesn't just summarize. You can choose specific templates for a recording type like team meetings or consulting meetings, and it actually builds out the finished work for you. You can even generate slides and visuals immediately after a call, which I find unique. When the meeting is done, your work is also done. The best part is that you can share all of that to a Notion database with one click, as you can see in this example. I just hit send to select my database and advanced options, and it's in there already formatted and ready to go. My Notion just stays current without me having to update anything manually. You can also use Notta Brain to pull context from all of your past recordings, surface to-dos from recent meetings, find risks and blockers, and find trends within your meetings. If you'd like to try out Notta AI, be sure to check the link in the description. Let's get back to the tutorial. Now what we're going to do is basically link our notes to our notebooks. I'm going to click here, plus add a property, and then I'm going to choose something called relation. Relation basically allows you to connect two databases together. In our case, we want to connect it to notes, and I'm going to choose two-way relation on, which means that you can see this information from both sides. I'm going to add relation. So now what I can do is for my reading notes, I could actually link it. So this one is actually relating to my reading. So I want this to be part of my reading notebook. Now what I can also do is add the property, which would show exactly how many notes I have in each of my notebooks. So I could do a roll up, which means that it rolls up information from my relation. So I can select the relation, which is the notes, and I can calculate and count all. So now you can see 1. I can then rename it to say number of notes, and then you see all of your notes here. So now what I'm actually going to do is property visibility always hide, so that we don't see these crowding our notebook. Instead, what we're going to do, go to the arrow next to new and click plus new template. This is going to be for every new notebook. Inside of here, I'm going to type / linked view of data source, and we're going to look for notes. So now we're adding the notes database inside of each notebook as a linked view. And what I'm going to also do is then click the filter and filter it by the notebook and then new notebook. So now all of the notes relating to this new notebook are going to show up here. Now if I click out, and if I click back to this arrow, I can set this one as a default template for all views in the notebook. And what that means is that when I add a new notebook, so this is a new notebook, you'll automatically see the notes inside. Let's say that this one is for my notes on Spanish. Now if I click plus new page, I can add my lesson notes, and you can see that it's already relating to my notebooks here. So now if I go to my reading, the existing notebooks, well, you need to click inside for each one. So here I can click new notebook, and then here also new notebook. And maybe if I had other reading notes, so I could do reading notes from 12-week year. I could take my notes in here. Now if I go back to my notes database, I will see all of my notes inside of here. So now that we have the basic setup of our notes and notebooks, what we can next do is type /callout. I'm going to name this databases, and then we can go ahead and bold text, and I'm going to click and hold next to here to create this box and then move these under the databases. And you can keep them just stored here, or you can even use them directly as well, but it's just good to separate your notes and notebooks into this section for databases, so you know that that's where your core information is stored. Now what we're going to do is have a system where you'll be able to see your notebooks and your notes in the same page. So I'm going to type /linked view of data source, and I'm going to display my notebooks database here in gallery view. And now I can actually click and hold the 6 dots and move them to the right side column. So something like this. And I can even click the 3 dots here to hide the title. And I could add my own title above by clicking plus here /heading 3. I'll move this above, right above the gallery view. And I'll call these notebooks /divider. And then what I'm going to do is click the settings over here, layout, and one thing I'll do is to hide the page icon so it looks a little bit cleaner. And the other thing I'll do is to go to property visibility, and maybe I want to see the number of notes inside, so I can even display something like that. Next, let's go ahead and display the notes database. So I'm going to go ahead and type /heading3 notes /divider. And then I'm going to type /link to view of the data source. And I'm going to display my notes database. And I want to see it in a table view. And then I'm going to hide the title. So basically these are the same things you'll find in these pages. These are the source databases, and this is a displayed view of those. So any changes you make here is going to also change the actual database itself. So if I deleted my Spanish note and I check my notebooks here, you'll notice that the Spanish one has disappeared. The next thing I would recommend is to create a view which is mainly for your inbox. So inbox meaning notes that have not been categorized into any notebook. So I'm going to click on table and click duplicate view, and I'm going to call this one inbox. And I'm going to change the icon into a tray so that it looks more like an inbox, and then I'll move it to the left. And then I'll rename this table one into view all. So now if I click on inbox, I basically want to see a filtered view of all my notes which have no notebooks. So I'm going to click filter, add filter, and if notebook is empty, I want to see it here. So now I see that my lesson notes have no notebook. My home remodeling status update note has no notebook as well. If I then, let's say, attach this to my projects, it's going to move it out of my inbox. And my project shows one note. And in here, you'll see my note here as well. The next thing I wanted to cover are some additional tips on note-taking inside of Notion. And the first one I have is to create note templates. So if I go to the arrow here and I click plus new template, I can create a, for example, 5W template. And let's say that this one is /heading3, you want to know who, what, when, where, why, and just as a bonus, we could even add a how. You could add some bullet points. And now whenever you want to use a 5W template, you can use that template. So how that looks is now if I go and add a new note entry through here or through here, I can select that 5W template and start taking my notes immediately. So that's one tip I would recommend, is to start creating some note templates depending on your needs. Next is also that you can use the same template structure to create recurring notes. So maybe you have a project update meeting weekly, and for the notebook, it would go into projects, and you want this to have specific project update status and so on inside of here. Then if I click out and then I click on this 3 dots, I can duplicate this every week and actually set a weekly cadence for it. And it's going to appear in my notebook every week for my project update weekly. Some additional tips I have is if you do have Notion AI access, you can do things like auto tagging. So if I click on the tags, you can see AI autofill. And if I choose basic, I could say, for example, that auto tag based on the options for tags available. And I can make it so that it's when the page content is edited and then save changes. So now let's say that I didn't fill these in and I wanted the AI to do the autofill. I can have it do that for me here. You can see it loaded me reading notes. Another way that's really useful for note taking with the Notion AI is that, let's say I have this note that I made about atomic habits. I can proofread it, explain, reformat, improve writing, and so on, just from highlighting the text. So that's also pretty useful if you are doing note taking inside of Notion, so you can kind of clean up your notes. And one of the biggest ways you can also use the AI is actually to click on the icon in the bottom right hand corner And then you can actually ask it questions about what are some interesting notes I took recently, for example, and it would actually go through all of your notes and give you some insights on your entire notebooks and notes. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and I hope to see you all in the next video.